Schönen guten Tag und herzlich willkommen in Wuppertal. We are at the heart of Wuppertal, the city in the industrial Ruhr area of Germany, but we're here for a very special reason, and that is to discover the most unique suspended railway on the planet. It's well over 125 years old, and it links this city from one end to the other. A very unusual city in Germany. It's what's called a linear city because there are hills either side, and there's a very thin ribbon of habitation that spreads several miles up the valley, and as a result this is the perfect form of transport for Wuppertal. Let's go and take a look. Let's start with some practical information from the off. The entire length of this suspended railway is 13.3 kilometres. There's a total of 20 stations, many of them of architectural merit, and it takes a full hour to do an entire return journey. Now, the other thing is, how much does it cost if you want to come here? It's €8.80 for a day ticket for one adult, but each additional person, if you're travelling together, only costs €4.40. And these days it's also fully integrated into regional transport. By the way, here we are in the city centre, and you can see how effectively the rails just appear above your head magically in different parts of the city centre. Incidentally, I'm filming on a Sunday morning, and you'll notice that the centre of Wuppertal is relatively empty compared to, say, a city centre in the UK. That's because by law in Germany, pretty much all shops are closed on Sundays. It used to be far more restrictive when I lived in Germany in the 80s, when the only day you could really go shopping at anything other than ordinary times was a Thursday, which was known as Lange Donnerstag, or Long Thursday. But many would say it protects social rights, so I'm not making any judgment. The longest suspended railway in the world and in service every day for public transport. Let's take a journey showing you the panorama. You are in the driver's seat with Travel in the Know. Further evidence of my point that travel to undiscovered places, at least for foreign visitors, and you'll find loads to do. Some of these stations have true architectural value in their own right. Here we are at Adlerbrücke, means Eagle's Bridge, and it's famous for two reasons. The first relates to a circus elephant called Tuffi. In July 1950, the circus manager of Circus Althof thought it would be a great idea that when his great company of acts came to Wuppertal, he would actually put his smallest elephant, Tuffi, onto the Schwebebahn as a PR advertising trick. The circus director was quite honest. He bought 5 tickets to Tuffi, thinking that was equivalent to the number of people in terms of space that would be taken up. Tuffi was a spectacle on board, unfortunately. People had paid for special tickets, and they were gawping at the elephant, and the elephant understandably panicked and fell out of the Schwebebahn into the river below. There were photographers, onlookers everywhere. Everybody was horrified, but miraculously Tuffi survived to live another day. After that, wherever the circus went, crowds followed because of Tuffi's fame. The elephant itself actually managed to live to a ripe old age, so all's well that ends well. It must be said that, as far as I understand, the circus director had to pay a big fine to the Wuppertal Schwebebahn for having put an elephant on its rolling stock. The second reason why Adlerbrücke in Barmen is important is because Friedrich Engels was born here. Not only that, he lived and grew up in this huge house behind me. You might say that that's a rather surprising environment for a communist leader. Well, his father was an owner of textile factories in both Germany and Britain, and a very rich man. And although we know less about Engels than Marx, Engels is always the other one with the beard in the pictures. Engels was most famous for his writings about the conditions of the working classes, whether in Germany or later in Salford and London. And interestingly, here in Wuppertal, in those times, in the 1800s, the industrialization and the textile factories meant that Wuppertal, or what it was then known as, was not a very pleasant place to live. You can imagine the river changed colour every day, from blue to green to red, depending on which dyes from the fabrics had gone into the river. Some of the conditions for the workers were terrible. And whatever one thinks of Engels' legacy, there's no doubt that his studies on child poverty, and particularly child labour, played a major role in bringing child labour and exploitation to an end in 19th century Europe. So I'm pretty excited now because we're at the Schwebebahn, which is a really modern museum about the suspended railway here in Wuppertal. And I think there's going to be lots of interesting things along the way, but I can start by giving you some facts. So construction started in 1898 and the track was completed in 1903. It's 13.3 kilometres and only 2.7 kilometres of that are overland. The rest is suspended railway, and the driving height above the river is actually 12 metres. There's a maximum gradient of 4%. Number of supports 468 along the entire route. Car length is 24 metres. And something which really surprised me is the top speed is 60 kilometres an hour. Pretty fast. They have every generation of seat from the Wuppertal Schwebebahn as well. They say sit on them. I'm quite heavy. I certainly don't want to break it. And this is the original one, so I'm getting off. There are wonderful models of the most beautiful stations as well. For example, Wuppertal, which is very near where we are right now, inaugurated in 1903, and it's in an Art Nouveau style. Like everything in this museum, the detail is magnificent and so well thought out. What a beautiful journey through history and time. Here's a cartoon from 1895, and the text in German is Hangen, Bangen und Langen, which means suspension, apprehension, and superinvention. Why was it necessary to have a Schwebebahn at all? Well, by the end of the 19th century, the textile industry had grown so much here, and Wuppertal, I believe, was only second to Cologne in terms of the size of the industrial centres of Western Germany. But traffic was on the brink of collapse. It was well known that the air was hugely polluted, and that much like in London or Manchester, which Friedrich Engels, who was from Wuppertal, wrote about, I hate to say it, but the horse mess could be up to 3 meters high. So a different type of pollution to what we talk about today. And actually in 1887, there was a commission established to build the elevated railway. So really people were thinking ahead of their times and trying to alleviate difficult living circumstances and also bring modern means of transport and communication which would transform people's lives. Many other cities in Germany were offered a Schwebebahn but said no. For example, Berlin. Well, it certainly doesn't look like that today. There have been moments of tragedy. On Monday, April 12, 1995, the first train collided with some forgotten scaffolding claws attached to the rails. The train, unfortunately, fell into the Wupper River. 5 people lost their lives and 47 passengers were injured. A lot of praise needs to be given to this museum. It's very modern, only 2 years old, and I really recommend you to come here. It's a huge experience. You go back into history. 1929 virtual reality. I felt like I was there with a lovely family, a little kid called Fritz, and we find out about the social conditions, the industrial conditions, and it really feels like you're there in 1929. And I always wanted to live in the 1920s. Another lovely fact about the Schwebebahn is that the Kaiserwagen, which really means the Kaiser's carriage, which dates back to the origins of the whole suspended railway, has recently re-entered service, and soon it's even going to be available for hire. For example, for weddings. Just imagine, you can have 61 guests on board. Of course, beforehand, you need to go to the registry office in Wuppertal and actually get properly married. But then you can have all of the ceremony and all of the fun on board. Don't know if it travels at 60 kilometers an hour during the marriage ceremony, but at any rate, it seems to me a very original way of getting married. And it's a different way of carrying somebody over the threshold. There are tourists from all over Germany who come to enjoy this particularly special attraction. But it's not just from Germany. I've seen Brits, French, and I think even some folks from either Canada or the United States. So although this may be something that's never been on your bucket list, I actually think it's really worthy of consideration. Sadly now, though, the Wuppertal Schwebebahn only goes to 13.3 kilometers, so I can't use it on all my travels. And now I'm heading to Wuppertal main railway station, Hauptbahnhof, to continue my travels. Well, I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed this special vlog. If so, why not give it a like? It really helps with the algorithm. And then at the same time, subscribe and ask for notifications, and you'll never miss another show on Travel in the Know with me, Philip Saunders. It only remains to say Auf Wiedersehen und Dankeschön. Many thanks, goodbye, and see you on another adventure soon.